Dr. Theo Acheampong, what will you say? Is Dennis justified in saying, yes, we got sound bites. Beyond that, no substance?
There definitely were sound bites. As we say, she threw some shades, right, quote and unquote. But there were substantive issues that she also raised, and I'll come to that in a moment. But I think Dennis made an important point on the energy sector being a financial issue during the GM administration. And the interesting thing is that the current doomsday that we're going through is also a financial issue. The money were there to buy the fuel to actually power some of those plants. We wouldn't be going through the current doomsday or power rationing that we're having for the last couple of weeks. So it's important to situate things in the right context. I think, yes, the woman spoke very well. And she came across, at least for those of us who may not be as close to her as Honorable Fuseni and others, compared to 2020, she came across as being much more, assertive and direct in her posture and in the things that she was saying. And she spoke to the issues that, Ghanaians sort of care about in that respect. Number two, she's also a known face, or has been a known face, and she's been marketed once before as the running mate of John Mahama, and this then sort of adds a further credence into that direction going forward. The question now really for me becomes, to what extent would this translate into votes, particularly in some of the core coastal constituencies or regions that could decide the outcome of the 2024 election. So here I'm talking specifically about Western North, Central, and Greater Accra. And then when you also look at the other demographics that she spoke to directly, the women and then also the youth. So she at one point even, I think, asked whether the youth were in the room, and she got some response to that.
Maternity leave and the women's bank.
If you look at the women's vote, I mean, on the 2020 records, it's about 52% out of 17 million, valid voters in the country. Of course, she's not going to get all of that. But again, the question remains whether or not in the next few months to come, she will be able to posture herself enough to attract a lot of that vote. And then when you look at the youth vote, which for me I'm even more interested in, that if you've got 74% of your population below the age of 35, and for those that are actually voting based on the 2016 and the 2020 data, about 62-65% of that voting population of bloc is the youth vote, then again it becomes quite interesting to see to what extent this new assertive or bold Naana that we're seeing in the public domain. I'm not saying that she's not in her private life, but I'm saying in terms of the posture and the political communication and the rhetoric, it comes across that, she's being presented to us as this, new entity. So again, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think one other thing that it was sort of missing, and then I'll come to the policies that I think she talked about, which Dennis has not highlighted. And I mean, he's from the other side, so that's to be understood. And then for those of us who are in the civil space academic, our job is to interrogate, both. But I didn't see a defense of her track record in government then, and then also as Minister of Education, using some of the metrics like, the enrollment ratio or the provision of input and all of that. I thought that she could have brought a little bit of that into the conversation just to pivot and to tell Ghanaians, what then she's bringing to the ticket, because some people may have forgotten, and it's important to do that. But on the specific policy issues, there are some things that are mentioned in her speech. So she talks about or gives a bit more context to the 24-hour, economy. And I think she mentioned somewhere in the speech that they will pay special attention to skill training, and that they would be in the Tree language, quote unquote, insano ejuma, and so they would do a number of reforms within that space, and related to that, also introduce a 1 million coders, program, which would allow a number of the youth into things like coding, data science, and other fields. I mean, this is not that different from some of the interventions that are already happening in the space under the current, administration. And then she also talks about prosecuting, corruption and people that have squandered the resource wealth and other things. So there are a number of things in there that she talks about, but fundamentally, the point now really becomes to what extent in the next 4 or 5 months would this then translate, right, into potential votes? Because at the end of the day, despite the outdooring, despite what we've seen, it has to translate into the incremental votes that the NDC is looking for. So it's going to be a very interesting and exciting campaign. And I think really by August or September, we would really know who is going to win this election.
Right. But it will matter who will partner Bawumia. So we may have to be patient to watch who will partner Bawumia before we continue in this trajectory. Please hold on, we'll be right back. Be your very final comment, and as always, my outfits these days is by Konati Clothing. You can find them at Adenta Shopping Center, Adenta Down. You can call Konati Clothing 0244 67 67 32. Hello, Dr. Acheampong.
Something very interesting. I just want to pick from where Miracles left off, right? In the sense that 2024 is the same standard that he's talking about is what will be used to judge all the candidates.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a question or an election based on trust,
yes.
Number 2, credibility, and number 3, competence. And Ghanaians will make a choice on the basis of this. The last small point I want to make also is the attempt to pivot her away from also all this other conversation about EMT and all of that, that she's going to have a direct oversight of the social sectors, health, education, social protection, and things like that. And I think that's also a very good thing to note, because it goes really to some of the reforms and other things that we've been advocating for.
Thank you very much. And this